Welcome back to vlog number 6. It's Sunday, June 1st at the Semyazi Silver Star Center. I found a little out-of-the-way place up the hill, the little covered area with some nice flowers in the background. Figured I'd shoot some, quick update. Vivian's left. Vivian left yesterday. I dropped her off at the airport, and it was really nice. It was really nice to be able to spend some time with somebody so dedicated to everything, to get to know each other. And so she's missed already. I'm sure, I know we texted, she got home safely, or she's back in Melbourne actually. She actually lives on a small island, Tasmania, which is just south of the mainland of Australia. But she's visiting one of her group members there. It's sort of a day layover, and then she'll be home. It's been really nice to get to know Vivian, and the one thing I could say about her is, man, she is so dedicated. When I asked her, hey, what are you looking forward to when you get back? What's the best thing you're looking forward to when you get back? And her answer was to get back to her translation work. So, she's just done so much, correction work, translation work, and, she's just such a dedicated person. That was the first thing she wanted to get back to, or that she missed. So I wanted to thank her for that. And then also, thank her for her time doing the videos. She came halfway across the world to meet here, to do, we actually recorded 18 videos. I wasn't sure if we were going to get all those recorded, but we ended up getting all of them done. So we have 18 different topics to release. We talked about that. We're probably just going to release one a month for the next month. Probably the first one will be in June. I'll do that when I get back. Put the all together. I did release one yesterday. That was our very last topic, our very last video. I showed that first just because it was sort of the end of our time here, and it wasn't really any kind of specific topic. We just wanted to talk about what went right, what went wrong. So that one is posted if you haven't seen it. That's sort of the first one that I posted. It's the last in the series, but it is the first one that's up there. So that's good. And another thing I really wanted to thank Vivian for was, it takes a lot of courage to do public work, to speak out in public, number one, and number two, to speak about the teachings. It's difficult. A lot of the concepts and the ideas that Billy talks about are not easy. And so not only does it take courage to get up in front of a camera, it also takes courage to open your mouth and share what you know. So, I really appreciate, her willingness to do that. And so it was really a good week overall. So she's missed. I miss you, Vivian. I'm sure at some point in the future, some years to come, we'll probably meet again and do some more videos. Maybe here. Who knows? Who knows what the future will bring? But we have enough videos for a year or more. So we'll be putting those out beginning in June, and probably one a month for there. Speaking of courage, and the courage to get up and speak in front of public, I really wanted to also take a little bit of time to thank the people who interviewed. Mainly they were passive members of FIGU Switzerland. There was also one non-passive member who flew in just for this. He lives on the East Coast of the United States. So let me start at the top. On Saturday, May 24th, I was able to interview Yunel Burke. He actually took that slot sort of as a last-minute opening. So not only did he have just a very short time, maybe 30 minutes to review the questions, he agreed to do it just right off the bat, saying, yes, I'll do it. I had met him at the passive member meeting on Saturday, the 24th, and he interviewed that evening. So I don't know him very well, but we spent a little bit of time together. So I just wanted to thank him for his interview and the answers and stuff. The next day on Sunday, the 25th, I interviewed Patrick Parker. Patrick is a passive member in Switzerland. So he lives in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, so more of the western side. I don't know exactly where. He had just said in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, and he's part of a group out there. I think he said there were 5 people. So thank you, Patrick, for coming in, and we had talked via email beforehand, so he had known about the questions and stuff. So thank you, Patrick, for coming in and interviewing. It was really appreciated. Kazuhiro Osawa, a Japanese man, very pleasant. He was actually here working too, doing volunteer work for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, maybe more. That's all I had seen him. But he answered all the questions in Japanese, which also takes a lot of courage. We'll have those translated and subtitled when we release that. So thank you, Kazuhiro. Really appreciate your time and willingness to speak on camera. And then also on Sunday, I interviewed Liliana Malo and Nathaniel Malo. This is a husband and wife team, and they are part of the Arizona Interest Group in the United States. So I had not known them before. I had heard of their work, but I had really not met either one of them. So it was nice to meet both of them, and I interviewed both of them. The same set of questions. So it was nice to get to know both of them. On Monday, May 26th, I interviewed Norman Beatty. Norman and I figured out that we were in a study group together in the 90s in Simi Valley, California. So that was sort of neat to just sort of reminisce back with Norman. And thank you, Norman, for interviewing. Certainly appreciate that. Next was Remington Robinson. So Remington, I had not known as well. I guess he said he was part of a group in Colorado. So there's apparently a interest group up in Colorado that he's part of, has been part of. Some of you may know that or even know him. Remington also is an artist. I had actually, after he had written to me and said that he wanted to interview, I actually looked at his website, and he's a very talented artist. And he was also the person that took pictures during our social event and shared those on one of the vlogs. I'm not sure which number it was, but he was kind enough to share his photographs, and that was really helpful. So thank you, Remington. Thank you for interviewing, and thanks for the photographs. Certainly appreciate it. And then next was Berta Voss. Berta is, I think she's from Germany. A German native speaker, spoke English too, and she actually did her interview in English. Actually, she did it in 2. We did it in English and in German. I'll probably use the English take, unless something's not really clear, and then I'll use the German take and then just use subtitles. I was really impressed with her understanding of the material. She has obviously studied and spent a lot of time thinking about it, deep thought about the material. Her questions were, well, you'll see when it comes out. Her questions were very telling of her level of understanding of the material. So I was really impressed by that. So thank you, Berta, for interviewing. Certainly appreciate it. Next was Trey Musali. Trey had been on a couple things about Trey. He also interviewed. Trey has recorded some shorts for the Bailey Meier Books YouTube channel. You can probably see those on there. He has a bald head like mine, and then a goatee. And he's also he lives here in Switzerland. And so he's done that. Also, he has his own YouTube channel, which on there he's called The Philosopher. So he also has just started doing some videos on the way to live. So he has the way to live being narrated. So he hired a narrator. He produced the whole thing himself. He hired a narrator to read passages from the way to live, and there's a picture of Billy. So that's a neat video series. If you get a chance, you can go on over to his YouTube channel and check that out. And then also Trey had invited me out last night over to his place. So he lives in a town called Wil, W-I-L, not Vila down the hill from here, but W-I-L, Wil. And I went over to his apartment. He's got a very nice apartment. We sat and talked for a little bit, and then we went into town, and he was sort of just showing me what normal Swiss life is like, what an apartment's like. He took me through his garage and his storage area, and then they had like a little outdoor like a food festival, just at any town you might, food and drinks, and they had some karaoke and stuff, but it was outdoors. It was like there was an old school, beautiful building, and they had like a little community event where they were serving food and that kind of stuff. So we walked through that, and then we ended up eating some pizza last night. So thank you, Trey, for the invite last night. It was nice to spend some time getting to know you, and thank you for interviewing. Certainly appreciate it as well. Grace Chan, she was also at the social event, passive member from China. She answered all of her questions in Chinese, so we'll be subtitling those. And it's difficult for her to speak about those kinds of things. So it's even an extra level or an extra step of courage for her to come through and talk about Billy's teachings and stuff. It's a little bit more. The Chinese government just sort of keeps an eye on everything. I'm not sure how it is because I don't live there, but I understand that it can be a little bit challenging, from living there for perspective. So thank you, Grace. Really appreciate you taking the time. And then Sachin Baguette flew in. He's a non-passive member. He's the one I mentioned before. He flew in from the East Coast of the United States for the weekend just for the social event. So that was really nice. Also, another person I was very impressed with his level of knowledge and understanding of the teaching, and his answers, you'll see when they come out, were very good. I mean, really are going to make for a good video. And then one other last minute, Emmanuel was sort of as a stand-in, and he also did an interview with very little preparation. He had probably just 20 or 30 minutes to look at the questions. So thank you, Emmanuel, for stepping in and doing an interview at short notice. Certainly appreciate that. So for all these 12 people that have agreed to give an interview publicly on the Billy Meier Books YouTube channel, and also answer questions about the teaching and their understanding and their feelings and their experiences. It takes a lot of courage to do that. So I just really want to thank these 12 people. I just named them all by name. I'm not worried about that because they've interviewed publicly. You're going to see them on the channel here, in the months to come. So these 12 people that took the time over this last week, it was really last weekend and Monday, Tuesday. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time, for answering the questions, and giving other people a chance to hear what your understanding is, what your thoughts are in the teaching. And it'll be really good. It'll be really good for other people to see 12 different perspectives, right? Not just mine, not just Vivian's, or not just ours together, but 12 different people be talking on these topics. So that'll really give a very good, a very broad spectrum of answers on the different topics. So thank all you 12 people for doing that. It's really appreciated. That's all I think for this update, at least for right now. It's a nice day, nice Sunday afternoon. It's Visitor's Day. There's nobody here but me, so it's nice and quiet. It's nice. And stay tuned for the next update. We'll see you. From time to time, I do think about not having Billy here to write for us. And it's not a good thought, but it's an inevitable thought. No one lives forever, and he won't either. And we'll be left to our own. Once Billy passes away, the Plearens will withdraw for good, and we'll be left with the teachings as they were given so many times in the past to the people of this planet, and we'll have to forge on our own. Don't know how that'll go, but like we have a choice, right? So this is a vlog, so I figured I'd share my thoughts on things like that. I do think about that from time to time. And what can you do? That's the nature of life. It moves on. Hopefully, we as a planet and each individual person will learn and evolve and become more human-like, less warlike. Anyway, I'm sure a lot of people have thoughts, in that realm or along the same lines. But it's coming. It'll be a day where Billy's not here, and it's just up to us to learn and become, the best human beings that we can. Anyway, just sort of wanted to share my thoughts on that. Good evening. It is Sunday evening, and it's time for question and answers. So I've gone through all the different questions that are on the site, and I'm just going to read through the questions. I'll read who posted them, and then I'll read the question, and then I'll give the answer. We'll just go through it like that. So thank you for the questions. Really appreciate it. So the first two are from Frank Ortiz 7873. Thank you, Frank, for writing that question in again. So your first one is, when the next personality is born from the creational energy, does the race change? So the answer is probably. You couldn't say for sure. So in Guido's book, Guido Musburger wrote a book called Diversicum. It's for sale. It's only in German, but it is for sale from FIGU. In Diversicum, he talks about the spirit forms on the other side that are waiting to reincarnate. So they've finished their processing of the material from the last life. So everything's done. They're ready to come back. He says it's like a funnel. And it's like a funnel like this and goes down to like a tube. So if you were to imagine a funnel and a tube with some balls, a bunch of balls in there, where they can all go down, but then in the tube, they only get in one by one by one by one. So that's how it is on the other side. And what happens is, when a new fetus reaches the 21st day and it's ready for a spirit form, Billy says, breathes in. It's like they take a deep breath and the spirit form comes in. That's probably, just some analogy, but that's what he uses. It's sort of interesting. He uses those terms, breathes in. Well, one of these spirit forms or these balls will go to this fetus and enliven it on the 21st day. It can happen anywhere around the world. So all these babies being born all the way around the world, these balls will come out and just go to the different babies. So chances are you'll be, all mixed all over the world, different. So you could be different races, that type of thing. Could be Chinese, could be Russian, could be American, could be Swiss. We're in Switzerland. So chances are it'll be different. Maybe you could say that, maybe China and India have a larger population, so maybe you're more likely to go there because they have more babies and things like that. But that's how the process works. It's sort of like a funnel that comes down to a tube. If you think the spirit forms are balls, they'll collect into this funnel, and then one by one, as spirit forms are needed around the earth, they'll go to those different ones. So will the race change? Probably, just from numerical. It doesn't have to, but that's how the process works. So hopefully that answers your question. Your second question, since I found Billy and the teachings in this life, personality, will the next personality find the teachings earlier in this life? I had the same question years and years and years ago. So I can tell you the answer. The chance of you finding the truth in the next life is high because of the inner drive, the seeking. That seeking that brought you to the truth this time. So in most cases, we don't have to, but in most cases, the cultures in this planet are religious, right? So chances are you'll be born into a religious community, and you'll probably have some, religious upbringing. But, our spirit forms will remember and have that seeking, that deep seeking for, this doesn't work for me, this doesn't work for me, this doesn't work for me, so I have to try something else. That you will have in your next life for sure. Now, I also have to say, it depends on your personality. It depends how it's arrived, because we always have free choice and free will, right? So you are free to follow that. This doesn't work for me, this doesn't work for me, and seek the next thing. But that seeking and that drive for understanding is something that matches with you. You'll have that in your next life. That's just, the impulses will come back from the Akashic records, or from the storage banks, I think is a more proper term. When they start hitting you, the impulses, your impulses from your previous lives, plural, they will drive you to seek. They will drive you to seek something that's meaningful, or more than a belief-based system. So will you find it? I don't know. Will you have that drive to seek something else? You absolutely will. But it's totally dependent on you. It's totally dependent on the personality, on the choices we make, right? Cause and effect. If we make the choices and we want to seek and do that, then you will. If if you're not that way, if your personality isn't that way, then it might be a little more tougher. So that's the answer to your second question. Daniel Flores Calderon, how you doing? You're back with another question, so I'll read it. Hello, Mike. I have a question. Can a human being in their current personality or in future personalities with a material body ever come to know and live in real love? So I'm assuming you mean effective love. Or is it only possible to feel it through impulses from the Empfindung, which reach our material consciousness as feelings, as impulses, not feelings, via our material subconscious, without truly understanding or comprehending what it is, because it is something that cannot be fully grasped, explained, or understood as long as one has a brain, i.e. a material consciousness? I believe the answer is no, because real love belongs solely to the consciousness of the creational energy, the pure spiritual levels. Creation and all its evolutionary stages, the absolute absolutum, and so on. In other words, everything is creational energy consciousness. Okay, so the Empfindung doesn't come in as feelings; it comes in as impulses. So this might be a translation error. I know you're a Spanish speaker, so it comes as impulses, not as feelings. And so real love, effective love. If we think back to the definition of Billy's term for love, the absolute certainty in knowing that one co-dwells and co-lives in everything that exists. That's the short version. You could look it up. I don't have it in front of me, but that's essentially it. So the first part is important. The absolute certainty in knowing. So that one co-lives and co-dwells in all of life. Now, you can't just think that. You can't believe that. You can't say that, oh yeah, I live with all creatures and all this kind of thing. It's the absolute certainty in knowing that you co-live and co-dwell in everything this is. All the animals, all the plants, all the planets, all the smallest bugs, ants, everything. That knowing that you co-dwell and co-live with everything that exists, then the answer to your question is yes, you could. I think we're a long way off from that, but when we come to a point in our evolution that we know that we exist with everything else, and the absolute certainty in knowing. This is a very specific term in German. The Billy doesn't use that often. So I don't think any of us have that. I mean, I think more people are, probably prone that way with love, and, I've known a lot of people that are more like that way. Love to their fellow man and all those kinds of things. So they're probably a little bit closer. But I don't know if any of us are that close to the absolute certainty in knowing that we co-dwell and coexist in everything that exists in the universe. That's a very big ask. So I think the answer to your question is yes, we can. It's probably going to be some time that we're able to exist in real love, effective love. So I think the answer to your question is yes, but it's probably going to take some time. Thank you for your question. Next one is Nothing, NOTH1NG2B3. Thank you for your question. Appreciate it. Hey, Mike. Hope you're enjoying your trip. Thank you. Seeing your videos again had me thinking about this question. In your video about consciousness, you stated that the Big Bang starts as the life cycle for creation, and it ends when the universe contracts back. That's correct. Assuming there are multiple universes and alternate timelines, does this mean the creation we are in a part of is only a fraction of something bigger than itself? Related to that and the Big Bang, if there was absolute nothing before the Big Bang, where and why did the thought or energy come from, and for spiritual and material existence itself? So this is going to be on the edge of my knowledge. Yes. So the creation that we have, along with other creations. So we know there's another one next to us, the Doll universe, and this is the Dune universe. Dune. I must need to see Dune. The Dune universe. There's sister universes. They're bump up next to it, but other creations can be up to 7. There can be up to 7 altogether. And there's many, I have no idea, millions and millions probably of creations in our absolute absolutum. Now, the absolute absolutum also has an evolutionary cycle. It's sort of the next one higher. And this is explained in Billy's book, the of all existence. And Vivian's actually going to be working on that translation. She's working on the second meditation book. She'll be working on that meditation. It explains that process in detail. I've read it, and it's really beyond me. About the absolute being universe and all these other different types of absolute absolutum. So we go through evolutionary process. The creation goes through evolutionary process, and the space that it's in goes through an evolutionary process. And I don't know if there's something beyond that, but also Genesis, if you want to read Genesis. So those 2 books, the Ur book, 7 times Ur, and Genesis gives a lot of information on how the universe goes, how it expands, it contracts, and how it evolves. So that's the best I can tell you on that one. I've read that quite some time ago, but I'm just not quite sure on it. But that's where you can find the answers, in those 2 books. Thank you. Appreciate your question. So Harold, Harold, from the What the School Didn't Tell You, or What the School Didn't Teach You, he put a post here I thought I'd read because it was an answer to another question. Hi, we asked the question about the universal prophet in 2022 to Billy. So this is the question about, does each universe have its own universal prophet? I don't think I knew the answer to that. So the answer is that every creation has only one universal prophet. This prophet is responsible for all 7 space-time dimensions, universes. Currently, we don't know who is the universal prophet of the Doll universe. It's not Ask It, because that has been assumed by our study group, so that question came to our minds. So, okay, Harold, thank you so much. He's the gentleman that helped me in the very beginning set up. He's a professional. He's a professional editor, and Harold. I think it's Shoshman. It's now he's probably going to be mad I butchered his name. I can't remember. Anyway, he says his group answered this question. So the person who answered about does each universe have a universal prophet? There you go. Thank you so much for posting that. I didn't know it. It's nice to have a community here that, hey, if I don't know, somebody else knows, and they can post it for so we can all know. So thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe his channel. What School Didn't Teach You. That's a great channel. I've watched a lot of their videos. He actually has a new one. We got to see a preview last Saturday, which was really good. So that should be coming out soon. It's just in German. I think the English was right behind it. So I think it's Harold Shoshman. Anyway. Okay, next one is from Nadia. Hi, Nadia. Hi, Mike. Love the scenic tour of the SSSC and the updated summary. Amazing. So will it be logical to say that the creation life energy also exists in the absolute absolutum for its further all-time evolution? I don't know. The creation life energy, we first learned about that last Saturday, and I shared it with you guys. I think Contact 911 is out now. I'm not sure. They said it was going to be published. So if it is out, you could read it in there. But the truth is, as far as the creation life energy, I don't know that much. I only know from what Billy did the lecture last Saturday, the one that Bernadette read. So that's all I have. That's all I have knowledge on the creation life energy. I would assume yes, because if we say that our spirit forms as creation energy and creation life energy go back to the creation at some point, I would assume that there's probably some evolutionary process in the absolute absolutum. It would just make sense, right? Like you're suggesting, it would make sense that it would do that. But the answer, I don't know. The creation life energy is a brand new concept to me. And what I don't like to do is I don't like to, say something if I'm not sure or I don't know. I've only read what we've all read so far. So anyway, thank you, Nadia, for the question. Appreciate it. Next one from James Smith, 5666. Hi, Mike. I have a question. Billy has spoken of fluidic energy and also energy that gets deposited into material, which can cause haunting-like phenomena. Right. The fluidic forces from our bodies, and they can go into objects, and you can sort of feel the person, or hauntings and all. Yes, he wrote that in all about fluidic force, all about the fluidic energy, something like that. Billy has a book. It's a title like that. Is this fluidic energy and or deposited energy the same as creation energy or creation life energy? Salome James from South Australia. Oh, awesome, James. Maybe you're in Vivian's group. Maybe you're not. But anyway, hi. I just spent time with Vivian, president of the Australian group. So on this one, I have to say I don't know. The fluidic energy, it would make sense that our creation energy and creation life energy, since it powers everything, they would have something to do. But since Bailey uses a specific term, fluidic energy, it's probably different than creation energy or creation life energy, which is your question. Is it the same? However, I bet you there's a connection, because if the creation energy gives our body the life, like the battery I explained, and the creation life energy is the drive, the evolutionary drive that starts the personality growing from scratch, and all those kinds of things. Since those enliven our body, I would bet that the fluidic energy is connected somehow with that, right? Because how could it not be? So sorry for the partial answer. That's the best I could do. I bet you there's a connection, but it's probably not the same because Billy gave it a separate name. So he's very precise, as you know, if you've read any of his stuff. He is so precise. So hopefully that answers your question on that one. And thank you, James, for writing in. Next one, Anthony Wilson, 8634. Hi, Mike. I really enjoyed watching this video. Do you know if creation energy exists in many-fold forms besides the creation life energy? Anthony, that is an interesting question. I had the same thought. After I read Billy's lecture and heard it and then read it again to do the summary for the channel, I thought to myself, you know what? If there's yet another form of creation energy, creation life energy, creation life energy, I bet you there are other forms. And that he just hasn't shared that with us because it's so advanced. And what would we do with that information? So I don't know the answer to it, but I thought the same thing as you did. After hearing that there was another different type of form, and I even went as far as saying, I bet you there's like 7 types of forms, because how creation is based on 7. So here we have 2. I bet there's like 5 others or something like that, or maybe 14, or there's probably other flavors or other forms of creation energy, but this is all we know for now. I thought the same thing as you. I wonder if there's other ones. So good thinking, and thanks for writing in. Mephistopheles 2469. Hi, Mike. Question. It sounds to me that the creation energy and the creation life energy are equivalent or analogous to the material body and the brain, where the body grants you physical strength, and the brain processes your thoughts and feelings. I'm assuming you mean the consciousness. Is this correct and a simple way of understanding the differences between creation energy and the creation life energy? You can. I always encourage people, Mephisto, if that works for you, if that analogy works for you and it explains it for you, then there's no harm in doing that. We're so all individual, and everybody understands things differently and has different experiences and has different knowledge. So whatever works for you as an analogy for understanding, I would use that. That's the best I can say on that. The physical strength, it also comes from food and, drink and other things, and the brain processes your thoughts. It's really the consciousness. So we may just have sort of a play on words here about that. But if that works for you and that helps you with your understanding, I would use it. I would go ahead and use that. Everybody's different, and maybe somebody else would explain it a different way, and that works for them. So whatever works best for your knowledge and understanding. I think that works the best. And thank you for the question. Appreciate it. Remington. Hey, that's right. So he writes here. I'll read it. Hey, Mike, great meeting you last week. Yes. So Remington Robinson was the one who took the photos at the social event. Thank you, Remington. Appreciate it for sharing those. And he writes, upon returning here to Paris, I'm assuming that's in Colorado, because that's where you're from, I finally told someone close to me about Bailey's contacts. She had many questions, one of which I felt like I couldn't answer adequately. But first, I know the time spent on the other side is supposed to be roughly 1.52 times the human lifespan. That's correct. Which is now shortened due to overpopulation. Also correct. I also feel like I read at one point that the shortened time can be, in some cases, as little as only a few years, months, or weeks. Or was it potentially as little as days or seconds? Yes, so the time is completely variable. There's so many factors on how long we stay on the other side in the death life before we reincarnate back in. So you're right again. I know that time also depends on the amount of life lived, if it was cut short by an accident, etc. Right. So the longer you live, the longer you'll be on the other side, on the death side, because you have to think over, you have to process everything you've learned. The longer you've lived, you have more to process. So say if you live short, if you're in a car accident at 7 or something like that, then yeah, you'd come back quicker. So that's just another factor. There's so many factors. Then I think his question. Now for the question. If there are around 120 billion creation energy forms of human beings tied to planet Earth, does that mean that there are a lot of them who very rarely get to incarnate into a physical body? It could. More important than that, Remington, is to remember that on the death side, there's no time. So there's no such thing as time. It doesn't exist. You're in a state of being, and there's no time, and it doesn't pass like that. So it's really difficult. So I'm assuming you're meaning from the earth standpoint, but the spirit forms on the other side, they're not going to know time. They're not going to say, oh, I've been here for 1,000 years or something like that. Creation has a way to work everything back in. The real problem, as you already know, but you mentioned, is overpopulation, right? There's so many people in the world that spirit forms are having to come back much sooner. They don't have time to process all their information. They're being pulled back in before they finish processing the information from their last life. And what happens is it really stunts evolution. Because if you're just starting to process stuff from the last life and you get pulled back into life again, you're not much better off than when you left, right? You're going to make all the same mistakes, well, mostly of the same mistakes. You haven't learned as much as you did because you haven't had time to process that. So that's part of it as well. But the most important thing is there's no time on the other side. There's no sense of existence. At some point, they'll enter this funnel. I talked about this on an earlier question. They'll enter this funnel and then slowly get back into back into the cycle. Whenever they're ready, they'll get in the funnel and they'll be incarnated again. So it may, I guess your question is, some of them may wait longer, which is better. It's a better than having to come back in too soon. So hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, put another question down below or a clarifying question and I'll answer it again. Okay, Mizar cubed. This is my favorite question of all the questions. So Mizar cubed, cubed. Thank you for your time and energy. I have a question. You've touched on this in an earlier video. However, I would like a fresh perspective. I know the ego has a positive and a negative, and I'm really trying to learn to be more neutral. Can you give me a few pointers? Salome. Yes. There's 2 points here that I think require 2 points here that could be helpful. So one is the ego and the one is neutrality. So I have a whole video on neutrality. Hopefully you've watched it. If you haven't, please watch it. It's pretty comprehensive. So the ego, let's talk about that for a second, because this is a well overlooked subject in the teaching. So the ego is very tricky and can play a lot of tricks on our mind and not enable us to see what it is. So let's make an example. Let's make a couple examples. So the first example is if someone's real forward and they're demanding and doing this type of thing, that's their ego coming forward, right? That's easy to see in other people. You can see how they're acting. It's very difficult to see in ourselves. This is the first point I want to make. So when we're behaving in a way that's egotistical, and there's different ranges, or there's a whole spectrum of egotistical behavior, from very mild to very strong. Well, that's easy to see in other people, but it's very difficult to see in ourselves. So that's the first point up at the ego. We have to learn to observe ourselves to see when that ego comes up. In addition to that, there's different aspects of the ego. There's different, you can call it, of our personality. There's different flavors of it. So in one instance, and Vivian brought up a good example in our last video, where she was talking about a booklet. If you're going to print a booklet, and you have several people working on the project, and the booklet, say that the cover's being designed by 2 or 3 people, and one person is demanding that, oh, it has to be this way, it can't be that way, this type of thing. This is her example. She was talking about something else, about stepping back. But the point I want to make is, if someone was saying, if they had their ego at the front and saying, hey, it has to be this way, the book has to be printed this way, not really listening to what the other people have to say. If I was to say to that person, that's your ego speaking, what happens is he gets defensive, and he could say whatever he could say. He could say, oh, that's not my ego. That's not my ego talking. I'm doing this because we're working on Billy's, we're trying to get the truth out. We're trying to share the teaching. This voice that comes forward, it's another aspect of the ego that comes and stands in front of the other one. And says, no, that's not ego. That's not ego going on. This is the point. Hopefully you've gotten the point I'm trying to make. This is the point I'm trying to make, that the voices in our head, or the talking in our head, it's also ego. Like if I was to confront you and say, hey, your ego's too big, the first thing you're going to do is deny it and give an excuse. And this is also the ego. This is another aspect of the ego that comes in front of the other one and protect it, so it won't get hurt, so you won't feel bad and things like that. If you can learn to see that, if you can learn, this is part of observing your thoughts and these voices that talk to us, everybody. So many of these voices, like the majority of the time, are different aspects of our ego. And that's what has to be seen. We have to be able to watch ourselves when that happens. Like when somebody accuses you of being egotistical or putting too much might in front of it. The thoughts that come up and then the behaviors that follow that, that's also ego. So anyway, that's the first point. So for neutrality, there's a whole video on it, but neutrality starts with understanding other people. It starts with empathy. So Vivian and I did a whole show on empathy. You haven't seen it yet, but we've recorded one. It starts with empathy. It starts with understanding, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, walking a mile in the other person's shoes. It's another one of those wise sayings. It starts with empathy to understand that. Neutrality does. Then from that, from understanding the other person, then from that flows once you understand them, you can be more neutral towards them. Now that you understand their position and what they went through in life and why they're having a bad day, and maybe they had bad parenting growing up, all these types of things add to the ability to be neutral, to understand that each person is individual, and that we have to respect that individuality, and that everybody has different levels of understanding, different intelligence, different experiences, different cultures. All these things, all these understandings come into being part of becoming neutral, of being neutral towards other people. That's a real major point for the neutrality. So the neutrality isn't just with the thinking, isn't just with the thinking of ourselves. It's also about how we view other people. And if you could learn to do that, or if you can learn to watch yourself when you're viewing other people or dealing with other people, you'll be well on your way to achieving a more neutral position towards other people. It's difficult, and I have a whole video on neutrality. If you care to watch it, it was in a discussion format with my wife, so that goes into a lot more depth than I will today. But these are just 2 points, And Ms. R Cubed, I really appreciate you bringing up these deep subjects. And it tells me how you're thinking. It tells me that you're doing the real work, that you're observing yourself, you're asking about the ego, you're asking about neutrality. I can tell, I don't even know you, but I can tell by your question, you're really heading in the right direction. So if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Hopefully that gives you a few pointers. And that is the last question for this evening. So thank you all for following the vlog. Appreciate it. If you have questions, put them down below, and we'll see you on the next vlog. Have a good evening.